Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? This is Jeff from BKJ Mac TV, and this is the BKJ Mac Podcast Experience. The BKJ Mac TV Podcast Experience. I'm saying it twice, definitely. Today's episode, this is episode 1 of season 2. Yes, this is season 2 of the BKJ Mac J-Mac TV podcast experience. Season 2, episode 1 takes us on the documentary that just came out about the BMF. It was created by 50 Cent, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, the famed director, producer, and actor from the series Power that he brought over to stars. I think everybody's aware now that 50 is no longer connected with the Stars Network as he took his talents elsewhere to another network. But his pride project, BMF, was able to get released in October, and now I'm doing a review about it. And I just watched the all 8 episode series, and it was pretty interesting. It's definitely pretty interesting. I enjoyed it. It really spoke about the game of trying to come up, trying to be successful. And let's be honest, the drug game, the communities that's being ravaged by drugs, especially if I talked about the 70s and the 80s, how tough of a time period it was, especially for black folks coming out. And, Demetrius Big Meech and his brother Terry, they grew up in the ghetto of Detroit. Detroit was really changing. Detroit was known as the automotive capital of the United States. Manufacturing automotive companies was there pumping cars, and they hired a lot of black folks. A lot of different types of people were working in those factories, building cars, working the assembly line. And slowly, with crime escalating, violence escalating, there was a great white flight, and then those jobs, those companies, those plants started closing down, creating a horrible situation for the brothers coming into Detroit. So this series explores that. Even I think people are aware that we get to see it in the BMF TV series in season 1. Season 2 is about to drop in January, so stay tuned for that one. That's going to be definitely explosive right there. Right now in this article, this is in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and this article is by Rodney Hoy. His name is Rodney Hoy. So definitely a big shout out to him. He wrote this on October 19, 2022. And I'm going to read to you from the article. Stars on the heels of a successful scripted Stars series, BMF is coming out with an 8-part documentary series on the notorious drug trafficking and money laundering organization. BMF, known as the Black Mafia family, was started in the late 1980s in Detroit by 2 ambitious brothers, Demetrius Big Meech Flannery and Terry Southwest T. Flannery, and by 2000 had built a cocaine distribution operation that spanned the nation and operated like a Fortune 500 company. The feds would eventually take them down in 2005 and sentenced both brothers to 30 years in prison. With the scripted version already on air and cooperation from Meech, executive producer 50 Cent decided to create a companion documentary, which is cheekily titled the BMF documentary, Blowing Money Fast. So, let me talk about this part right here. They built a cocaine empire, BMF, and they also went legitimate, building music, getting a lot of artists put on, just creating a giant community. And that was BMF, Black Mafia family. Some also say blowing money fast. They had tons and tons of money, and they spent tons and tons of money. They were really enjoying the good life, big houses, nice cars, jewelry, alcohol, entertainment, women. I mean, whatever your heart desired was what was gonna be there. The money was gonna provide that, and the money was coming from the cocaine operation, drug trafficking, money laundering operation. I mean, it's all those things that were being done in order to live the good life. I mean, let's be honest, and I'm going to put this out here right now. When you force a group of people or a race of people into bad circumstances, into horrible living, people just think, oh, well, they're just going to accept it. Hell no, they ain't going to accept it. They want to change their situation right now, and some people are going to take it as a way where they're going to go around the system and become dealers, drug dealers, and their buyers are the customers. They're buying and buying and buying, and in return they get the money and they buy all these fancy things, get them out of their nasty, decrepit situation into better, greener pastures and whatnot. And that's basically what BMF did. They was able to turn something that was negative. They came from somewhere negative, and they basically spin it into something gold. And that's the American dream, being successful. They talk about Scarface a lot in the documentary, because Scarface came from nothing and he became somebody. He became a something. And eventually he fell, but the idea of Scarface was that guy, an immigrant. It was just an inspirational story to these groups of guys. BMF. Demetrius and Terry were just not gonna sit around and let life just beat them up and work minimum wage paying jobs and hope that one day someone discovered their talents. It was just not gonna go down. Let's be honest. People judge you on so many levels. If you wanted to make big money, then guess what? You gotta so-called kiss the ring, or you gotta have a certain look just to be able to get an opportunity to get to the top of the food chain. So big ups to Demetrius, Big Meech, and Terry for not really, sitting around and try to hope that life would give them an opportunity. They went out there and grabbed the opportunity. They went out there to put that work in to get the brass ring. And there's gonna be some ops out there that's gonna be jealous of that. That's a fact. Going back to the article, it states the documentary focuses on Meech's time in Atlanta, primarily in episode 3, 4, and 5. In the early 2000s, he set up East Coast BMF headquarters in Atlanta and launched an entertainment company to promote rap artists. He and his crew spent gobs of money at dance clubs and lounges, on strippers and champagne, while rubbing shoulders with P. Diddy and Little John. BMF even put up a billboard in Atlanta, Ella Soso Def Records, an arrogant move that annoyed his brother Terry, who ran the West Coast operations, and basically mocked the investigators trying to take him down. In the 5th episode, Meech declared, "I'm the Black Pablo Escobar," referring to the infamous Colombian drug lord. Meech's heavy partying would eventually catch up to him. At Club Chaos in Buckhead in 2003, Anthony Wolf Jones, a former bodyguard of P. Diddy, got rough with an ex-girlfriend hanging out with Meech's crew. Jones got kicked out. Later, when Meech was leaving the club, a massive shootout happened and 2 men, including Jones, were dead. Meech was arrested for double homicide. The doc uses several images of contemporary stories from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So essentially, this part where, he was enjoying life, Demetrius Meach was on top of this game, was on top of the food chain. He was chilling, and then he was doing legitimate business, really in the entertainment business, in the rap game, getting rappers an opportunity to shine and whatnot. Why not? He was doing what he was doing. He was doing he was living the American dream. He was getting that cream. He was sharing the wealth with his team. That was Big Meech. That's what he was about. He was making sure that he wasn't going to be the only one to eat. He was going to make sure that everybody around him, his whole team, was going to eat. So in a sense, he was having fun, but then the situation in Club Chaos in Buckhead in 2003 was sort of like the turning point, and bringing the investigators, the DEA, after BMF. It's unfortunate that this man, Jones, and his mans was trying to get at Big Meech. He ended up falling for it. But at the same time, this situation could have been totally avoided if cooler heads would have prevailed. And that's what happens. It'd be stuff like that try to get the ops on you and whatnot. And that's what happened. And if you watch the episode, you'll see the whole breakdown of that story and how it occurred. And then eventually you're going to see another part of the story where they had the wiretaps and they were listening to Terry's voice, and they was pointing fingers at associates, and it was really wild, So it was just, at the end of the day, it was just like these episodes were really exploring these men and what they had contributed to the society. And what they did to society was they created a family, a unity, and they didn't operate in a violent sense, even though there was a murder where there was a guy that was supposedly cooperating, and then one night they ran through his home, and then they shot him, and then they shot the innocent woman. And because they shot the innocent woman, is what they were pointing at the investigators, is when they decided to go really hard and try to take down BMF. So in essence, whoever ordered that hit was the one that really signed the paper for the DEA, the DEA and the FBI to come down at them really hard. But overall, you gotta take a message. The true message of this documentary was basically this: be careful who you operate with. Don't flaunt what you're doing, because people have a tendency of doing it. They don't move low key. It's hard to move low key, but at the same time, just don't do too much, because the society is hard to make it out here. It's always hard to make it out. You could be successful. You could be that lawyer. You could be that doctor. You could be that nurse, that teacher, a government employee. You hoping to be successful. That's what you want to go to school for. You hope to be successful, but not everybody could go to school and be successful. There's still a lot of issues. There's just still a lot of issues. And then, sometimes you gotta sell drugs to be able to be successful, and that's what Big Meech did. His circumstances, him and Terry's circumstances were dire, and they were able to get out of that situation by selling drugs. They started off from selling weed to cocaine and all these other pills, but it was mostly cocaine. And to sell cocaine, to be the sellers of cocaine, it's just crazy. But you do it because you're trying not to survive, but you're trying to be comfortable. You're trying to live comfortable, and you're trying to do it every day in your life, where you're trying to be living like you're a king. And that's what we are. We're kings. So it's like you're trying to live comfortable by any means necessary. But overall, the series is well made. and it's something that must be watched. It must be watched. Let me go into the article again. Though Mitch was eventually acquitted of the charge, the Club Chaos shooting caused a major rift between him and his brother, Sean Nicholas, who had done documentaries about the Jamestown Massacre, which I seen in the 1970s New York City culture, and his other producers were able to convince many former BMF members to speak on the record for the documentary. It took a lot of trust building to get them to be to a comfortable place. Nicholson said, "Street culture is you don't speak on camera. You don't speak, period. We had to get over that hump." They were also able to get Meech to talk about his experience via phone, the first time he had spoken to media about his life since he was sent to prison. To have Meech's voice in it, to have his own point of view and tell his own stories, this is definitely new ground, Nicholas said. Yes, Big Meech acted like the narrator of the story at most points, really detailing these 8 episodes and how it impacted his life in a different way, starting from the slums of Detroit to becoming the elite of society to now being locked up and eventually being free soon. Chris Farson, the director, grew up in Detroit and was well aware of BMF. He said Meech in the interview didn't appear to gloss over his wrongdoings. He's at a space in his life that he's reconciled the good and bad things he had done. He understands his story. Nicholson also noted an irony. As flashy as Meech was, as public as he was the more careful one. Terry was the one caught on the wiretaps, not Meech. Terry Ferguson noted a decline to speak to the producers on the record. He was released in 2020 during the pandemic to home confinement due in part to health issues. He's never been the camera guy, he said. In some poetic sense, you feel his presence in the film, but he's not there beyond mostly still photos. And while BMF eventually was dismantled, it operated unhinged for a surprisingly long time, which is a testament to their business model, which involved almost no bloodshed. That's a fact. It was a non-violent group. They were different than most other criminal organizations. Ferguson said, "We wanted to show their industrializedness, their discipline. They made deals with people all over the country and were fair with them. BMF transcended gang colors and affiliations. It transcended race and creed. This organization had people of all walks of life. But at the same time, it's important to note this empire was built on pain, on drug addiction." Ferguson also understood why Meech left Detroit in the first place for Atlanta, where black folks with money were not looked at with as much suspicion as they were in Detroit. Atlanta was called a black Mecca for a reason, he said. But the Club Chaos shooting drew so much attention, he noted, in part because it happened in the wealthy enclave of Buckhead. Ferguson, while in town, noted that even 2 decades later, crime in Buckhead seems to get an inordinate amount of attention from the press and police. Ultimately, Ferguson said this documentary is like a twisted, relatable American dream story. BMF was born out of a luck of opportunity. He said they made choices at first to just feed their families, then it became much bigger. So it started off by feeding their families to living the American dream, to being the American dream. Lessons were learned, things happened, and life's events occurred. So at the end of the day, Big Meech and his brother Terry will go down in American history and American social history as one of the kingpins of organized crime, but in such a sophisticated and such a peaceful, non-violent way. They did it to help other people out. They did it to not only enrich themselves, but the people around them. They did it to redefine what it meant to be a black family in America. and that is BMF, Black Mafia Family. They made a lot of money and they spent a lot of money. At the end of the day, the money got spent building a Black Mafia family. Thank you for listening to episode 1 of season 2 about the BMF documentary. I hope you tune in. It's on Stars. All 8 episodes are available right now. Please check it out. It's a good documentary. Thank you for listening. Peace, love, always. One.